heard a great term recently about bathing waters, the swimmability of them. So,
I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So, from my perspective, more data is not what we need. Obviously, we need good quality data. What we need is good information.
Hello and welcome to The Stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation with guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm a content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarney, a water strategy consultant, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And this week, we're pleased to be joined by Fiona Regan, who is a director of the Dublin City University, DCU Water Institute. And you're going to hear all about Fiona, how she fell in love with water and wants to bring people along the journey. You're going to hear about why paddleboarders and fishermen are perhaps key to the citizen science movement. You're going to hear about the need for perhaps more real-time data on water quality, as well as you're hearing from stories and perhaps challenges and successes of scaling a tech transfer office. So Fiona, good afternoon to you and welcome to the stream. Good to see you. How are you?
Good afternoon. Hi, nice to meet you both.
Fantastic. So Fiona, you're tuning in today from home, right? I know when we've spoken before, you're from the office. So how's everything been for you?
Yeah, it's been very strange. I'm an academic. I teach in the School of Chemical Sciences, but we're teaching from home now. So everything's different. The way we do things nowadays, everything is different. Like this morning, I gave 2 lectures to my third years, and my dog went ballistic because he spotted the cat outside the door. So you just have to go with whatever happens, I suppose.
But people are much more understanding of the situation, right? I think they allow for these, I would call them interruptions, but it shows a bit of personality, and the blend between the personal and the professional is now perhaps welcomed, right?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I've heard all kinds of different anecdotes from friends of mine who work, in different kinds of businesses. For sure, in my job, you expect all kinds of things to happen. And, I'm a working mum and homeschooling and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of acceptance nowadays of, different things happening for sure. And everybody's changing. Everybody's changing. Since last March, the whole world is turned upside down. So hopefully we're learning from it.
I think the main thing is when you're giving a lecture is not to accidentally have a filter that's a cat. That's obviously the news that's right, the lawyer who couldn't get rid of the cat filter.
That was great. I wasn't sure if that was real or not, but apparently he couldn't get that filter off, and it went through the whole hearing.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think the quote was, "I'm quite happy to continue." He said, "I am here in person. I'm not a cat."
So Tom, could we do that maybe on the next episode of the stream where we're just our favorite animal?
Yeah, I think we should. There's probably a range of options, and let's see if there's an appetite out there, or people may be a bit confused by it. But
what animal would you choose, Tom?
Oh, that's good, Fiona.
Question.
You're good.
Great question. I think it'll be the time of the day. If it's about 4 o'clock, I'd probably be a sloth, just kind of wait.
Yes.
Just casually moving and very tactfully, kind of first thing in the morning, a bit more energy, something a bit more energetic, maybe an eagle.
Oh, gosh.
What about you, Will?
Oh, a penguin.
And it would penguin throughout the day, or would you morph?
Oh, yeah. No. I want to stay on brand. I mean, it would definitely be a penguin.
Okay. Interesting. Fiona,
I like how they dress,
Right. I mean,
very smart, actually. Just like you today.
Oh, thank you, Fiona.
Just like you today. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, cat filters aside then, Fiona, tell us about, you've described it before, your kind of love for water, and you see it as almost your kind of raison d'etre to get other people to fall in love with water. So I think the question is, where did the love start?
I know. Does that sound a bit sad, actually, that I have
no,
a love
not
for
at all.
water?
We love people who love water. How about that?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I tell you when it started. I suppose I'm an environmental scientist. I studied environmental science. I've always had love for the environment, and even going back to my dad telling me about different types of trees and leaves and all of that. It really stems right back to my childhood. But I remember traveling on a flight to Italy. I think it was about 2012 it was, and I picked up the the magazine in the pocket, opened it up to a picture of, an old Italian couple, a beautiful photograph, an old Italian couple. And in the description underneath, it said that they met many years earlier going to get water. And I thought, wow, what a romantic story. And, they ended up getting married and whatever. But certainly that made the hair stand on my neck. And I suppose nowadays we talk about, water scarcity and all of that. And something that really strikes me is that women walk for water for, hours and hours every day. They stand and wait for to collect the water, and they miss out on, education opportunities for their children and themselves, and work opportunities. So to be honest, it's as basic as that. The love affair with water is really around, realizing that it's such a valuable resource. There's a lot being talked about around stewardship and valuing water. But my idea really is you need to love water. You need to think about, how did that water end up coming into my tap? It didn't just fall from the sky and suddenly, fall into a pipe and there you can drink it, So I do love water, and even my daughter last night was saying, who left that tap running inside in the bathroom? It's ingrained in this household. It's so sad. But I do. And I the campaign I really want to push and will push over the coming years in the Water Institute is love water, because we really need to see how difficult it is, even in Ireland, where the water is falling from the sky. And there's lots of vox pops that you hear from people, why do we have to pay for water? Because there it is falling from the sky, every second day. And the truth is, people don't get what's involved in taking that water from the rivers or the lakes and treating it to the quality that we like in our taps, And just a kind of an addition to that, what really bugs me is we use that to water our lawns and wash our cars and flush our toilets, that really high quality drinking water. But that, that's where my love of water comes from, Tom. Yeah.
It's interesting. We had a client call yesterday talking about this very topic. It's the, human connection to water. And to your point, we could talk about stewardship and collective action and all that great stuff and water tech, but it's that very visceral connection to something that's just so essential and has multiple dimensions to it.
Do you think for people to love water, they have to understand water? I think that's part of perhaps the challenge. People can't instantly fall in love with something, perhaps, like you say, they just expect to turn on the tap and there's water, but to kind of mechanically break it down, how that gets there, to perhaps understand it and then better value it. The only reason I say, we had a call this week on a really interesting EU project that's using augmented reality in Athens. It's an app based around a project that's basically decentrally reusing water near to a tree nursery. So basically using a kind of shipping container to basically take water out of the sewer, clean it up, and then use it for irrigation. But the plan is to use this app so people in the park can visually see inside the container to see what it takes to clean that water up. And I thought that was quite an innovative way of engaging people by, you can't just expect them to think this is a cool project, it's reuse like we would. You have to kind of gamify the kind of the situation. So do you think?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, Tom, you've picked a really great example. You've picked a country that probably struggles with water scarcity.
Right.
The problem would be convincing people in a country like Ireland, where we don't really experience that scarcity. And, even in many countries across the globe that don't have a scarcity, apart from maybe a short time during the year. We do in the summer. We have, periods of pipe water washing bans, where you can't use your hose pipe rather. We do have periods of scarcity where restaurants and businesses, are at high risk of running out of water, but we don't typically have that. And so therefore it's hard to convince people of the value of water. If it's there, why should we think about that it won't be there, which I think is the difficult thing.
Fiona, what about, the quality of water? I mean, we have the same issue here in the US in that if you're near the Great Lakes, the whole notion of scarcity is alien, or the Northeast or the Southeast. But quality is really the issue there. And, look at Flint, Michigan, unfortunately now an iconic image. So, the value of water has the other side of the coin, which is safe, healthy drinking water out of the tap, or, wherever it may be. So, sort of both sides of the argument that create value.
Absolutely. I mean, we do have periods where there are boil water notices here, and that gets into the news, as you might imagine.
Yeah. And,
some counties, some areas would have boil water notice for up to a year. So it's those people that understand the value of water, Right. So yeah, water quality is a big thing. And when you consider something like E. coli or something like that, where it makes people sick, almost immediately, then they kind of stand up and listen. But if it's a continual thing like lead, it takes a while, for people to feel the effects, so water's a tricky one. You can't see what's in there, so there's a big story to tell people about water, I think.
So what about fishermen and paddleboarders? Because when we've spoken before, these are kind of...
How did you pick on that, Tom?
What a pivot, Tom.
What a pivot. I know, no introduction, straight into there. Maybe I'm losing my way there. Fishermen, paddleboarders, go. No. The reason I say it is because previous conversations we've had, Will, we've said people who are connected to the water perhaps have a better understanding and appreciation of the water.
Right.
So we talked about surfers sewage with Stuart or from WWF. So perhaps here's the longer segue, Will. So do you think conversations you've had and the value of citizen science, you have a head start when you're speaking to paddleboarders and fishermen?
Oh yeah, I mean, what a great topic to talk about. How long have we got? So, Will, I know you love the area of disruptive innovation, and the digital domain and water IoT is emerging in people's vocabulary now. Well, when you think about disruption, in recent years, I've had the opportunity to work with citizen scientists, and I'm an analytical chemist. So quality of data is really important to me. So I suppose I stepped away from citizen science for a good while until I got to work with Earthwatch Europe. Okay. Amazing organization who have loads of really good projects going, and they have Freshwater Watch, which is one. And we started working with them on the River Liffey, and also with a company to look at monitoring the River Liffey and filling in, data on nutrients, specifically nitrates and phosphates. And so we kind of reached out a year and a half ago now to citizens to see would there be any interest. And wow, were we blown away. So we had a blitz, and just to give you an idea of the interest that people have in, their own water body. And this really comes back to, minding your own little water body and loving your water. We wanted to maybe get about 100 citizens to do this. We got over 1,000 subscribers. Oh. And, we're going to run that again. But back to your question, I think that the best scientists are those people really who use water. And so you mentioned fishermen and you mentioned paddleboarders. So many years ago, I was involved in a project called Smart Bay Ireland. Brilliant project, and it lasted for about 10 years. And as part of that, we were trying to develop technology to support fishermen and to look at how could you actually kind of count the potential catch, so that they could manage, using their own technology on board vessels, they could manage their count better. And so I have a colleague in Newfoundland, Randy Gillespie, and he had worked with fishermen in Canada. And I said to Randy, would you come and speak with fishermen in Cork? And see, could you convince them to use digital technologies to help inform their business? And he said, absolutely. He said, because fishermen are the best scientists. They know their own environment the best, and they know when changes occur. They'll know if climate change is affecting their business because they can see it. So we had a great meeting with these herring fishermen, and lots of discussion about technology and about the potential of that technology. But I learned something really important in working with Randy and those fishermen, is that the people who use the water are the best citizen scientists. And so back to the paddleboarders. So
you two definitely prepared this. I'm convinced.
I just love this citizen science stuff because people who use water love it.
Right.
And paddleboarders, and I think you have an interest, Tom, in paddleboarding. I think you're new to it, so we'd have to get some temperature sensors on your paddleboards the next time you're out. But we have a project in the River Liffey, and we've got paddleboarders on there, and so they're taking the measurements for nitrate and phosphate.
Really?
But they're also observing, really great stuff. They're observing inputs to the river that haven't been observed before. And just an anecdote, one of them noticed a pipe coming into the river that was kind of looked like there was suds, and it was actually it had observed a cycle of a washing machine coming into the river, which would never have been picked up, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this kind of stuff is fascinating, and citizen science is really, I think, a great way of filling data gaps. And when you're working with agencies like Earthwatch, for example, you can trust the data and the tools that they use. So it's fascinating. Like I say, I could talk about it for ages.
I think I would need to wait for my paddleboarding skills to advance before I can have enough skill to be able to take a water sample as well. But I love the idea of that. And I think it's the impact on the community as well. So if you're empowering the paddleboarders to kind of actively provide the data on the water quality, then the people they tell, it's not just combining the kind of the joy for the sport, but actually imagine if that could eventually help go on to kind of shape public policy around water quality. How amazing would that be?
Yeah, and just on that point, the data that they get, they put it into an app, it goes straight up to the cloud, and then the maps are updating all the time. And one of the local authorities who heard about us doing this did ask for the data that we're generating because it fills gaps that they don't have.
Amazing.
Fiona, what's the cost of the sensor? Because now you've got me thinking that maybe I can get my rowing club to put sensors on their boats. So is this inexpensive sensor? And
so the measurement tools that we use are small little tubes, so that the citizen scientists collect a water sample and they observe a color change. But there are loads of sensors that you can use to actually put onto your boats, and simple ones would be an eye button, and you can just attach it on. There's lots of different types of sensors available.
Definitely a follow-up call. Or email on that one.
Right.
I might get thrown out of the rowing club though if I propose something like this, but we'll see.
No, you're protecting your water body.
Right.
I may enlist you in making the case.
Oh, great! Yeah, I'd love to.
I remember we did an Aquatech breakouts around blockchain application in water, and one of them was the Atlantic Water Network in Canada, that were using a citizen science data collection approach. But the whole thing was being underpinned with blockchain in terms of keeping the data point secure, making sure there was no changes, because like you said, there was such a big involvement from the community, ensuring that data was accurate and then kept kind of keeping a transparent and very secure ledger. So I thought that was a really interesting application of blockchain. And one of the few I've seen actually. So, but okay, so I want to hear about you from because Will talked about the low cost sensor, right? And obviously with your kind of academic hat on, and then with the tech transfer office hat on, your viewpoint on scaling a sensor-based technology. Because often me and Will, and we hear from perhaps the utilities in terms of adopting a solution, you hear about the companies themselves in terms of developing the solution and the challenges they may have. But I'd love to hear your viewpoint on kind of where that is and the kind of lessons you've learned so far.
Great question. And again, could spend loads of time talking about this. So my own research is in the area of sensor development for water quality monitoring. Got some great projects at the moment, kind of stemming from environmental DNA sensing. We've developed a lovely probe for Atlantic salmon, biosensors for marine toxins. And one of the more recent ones is an optical sensor that we're developing through what we call the disruptive Technology Innovation Fund. It's funded by the Irish government. And the idea of this fund is to get academics or researchers working with industry to start moving stuff forward to a higher TRL, technology readiness level.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a technology which we had tested a number of years ago to about TRL level 4. So, tested in the lab, a couple of samples maybe from the field, but we really felt it had potential. So we applied for this and were successful, and we're working with a really innovative SME, a small medium enterprise working in the marine sector. And I've known this company for years, back to my Smart Bay Ireland days, back 2010. And we've often tried to get a chance to work together. So what we've been doing is developing a sensor. And I should say that I work in an academic environment whereby the university encourages multidisciplinarity. And a lot of people talk about that. Right. We really do work in that kind of environment. So in my own lab, working in this project, I have a biologist, a chemical engineer, a physicist, and an engineer, mechatronics engineer, all working together today, integrating this sensor. And that's the only reason it's working. That is the only reason we will get it from the lab to the field, because we have all of those people working together. The biologist is a marine biologist, so he understands marinization. So I suppose my main point here is that, it's not a trivial thing to build stuff and then to actually translate it. You have to work as teams and you have to move together to integrate this. So long story short, we're going to deploy a number of these devices actually in the coming weeks. I just saw the bill of materials all laid out in the lab yesterday, actually really a great site. They're getting ready to put them all together, and then we'll hand them over to the company to deploy them for the first time. And then we'll continue building more units. So the idea is we'll create a network of sensors around the coast. And you see here, the difference in thinking is by working with the SME, and I should say this company, while they're a marine technologies company, they have great experience in integrating technology with communication systems. So they work a lot with satellite data, and they also develop communications and telemetry for sensors. So what a great partnership, to actually enable the change in the way we do things, so moving things from a lab to the field really quickly, but in collaboration and with multidisciplinary teams. It is complex, but by demonstrating those technologies then in the field, we're transforming again how data can be collected. So we have real-time data collection to the cloud, and then they provide the information. And that's what's important. The sensor is not important, it's the information. That's what people want, is the information. So look, this is such an exciting project. And so then you asked about tech transfer. These are the key elements. So in DCU, we also, as part of this team, we have a member of the DCU Technology Transfer Office who walks the way through the project with us. It's a 3-year project. And our person, she's with us in every meeting, and she's seeing, what's happening, and she's, protecting stuff, being careful that the likes of me doesn't go off and publish something and ruin the IP straight away. So that protection piece is really important. But they're with you the whole way. So it's a kind of a knowledge transfer thing happening. I'm learning about IP. My team, the young scientists, I've got PhDs and postdocs in there, they're learning about securing IP and then working with a company. So that picture that I'm painting there, all of those elements are essential, I think, for success. And that tech transfer piece has to be there the whole time.
Hey, Fiona, you've created what I would characterize as a very unique, very successful ecosystem to ensure that the sort of traditional tech transfer office is better connected and has a higher probability of actually taking an invention and getting it to commercial scale. So, the fact that you have an investment fund, you work directly with end users and directly with the researchers, and you've got, I don't want to say hand-holding, but you have the ability to shepherd that idea right to commercial scale. So
And I can't take
really
credit for that. I can't take credit for that because this is how DCU has operated. It's a great environment to work in as a technology developer.
You're very humble,
Nope.
but no, but I mean, you're successful because you have a team that integrates, and you recognize that, it just can't be one stakeholder that, sort of pushes rope and tries to get it done. It's, well, I need all of these moving parts, and how do you glue them together?
Yeah.
So I find it really interesting.
Do you think part of the reason for the success of where you've got is because these different stakeholders have been involved from the start? So everyone's had to kind of speak the same language, as opposed to something starting in the lab, then bringing in a commercial company, then trying to find an investor. So you've had all those key people speaking the same language and involved with kind of ownership right from the very beginning, right?
Yeah, I think that's so key,
right,
that you have all of those kind of stakeholders involved from day one, and that they understand the technology. The biologist understands what the physicist is doing,
Right.
And it's beautiful. It's really a lovely thing. When we sit in meetings, we meet every Tuesday, and we sit and we've got the engineer. I really like engineers. I think they're brilliant. I really do. We don't educate enough engineers. I listen to these really smart PhD students explaining what they're doing with great enthusiasm, and it blows me away. I have the best job in the world. I really do.
I think it's trying to take what is arguably a very complicated solution involving the hardware and the software, and then when you're going to market, trying to explain it very simply. And Will, do you remember the call we had with Kelly Trott from Imagine H2O?
Oh, yeah.
She tells the startup, "Speak to me as if I'm your granny." That was her quote, right? So explain the situation, explain your solution and the technology as if you're talking to your grand. And then she said, once people hear that, they tend to speak, kind of articulate the vision and the mission slightly differently. So I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a complex thing, looking at how you can translate technologies. And one thing I think which is really important, and it's kind of a mantra, is I need to get things out of the lab.
Right.
That is really important. I mean, no, I know it sounds so basic.
But Fiona, isn't there sort of this great tension between researchers that want to keep it in the lab until it's perfect?
Yeah.
And, continue to publish. And I know I'm going to get abused for this comment, versus, the market pull, the entrepreneur, that says, well, let's get it out, let's vet it, and, we'll see, how it improves over time.
Yeah. I mean, I have another student who's doing a great job. She's developing a phosphate sensor. And I called in on her last week when I was in DCU. And she was saying, oh, the points aren't exactly the way I want them. I said, hang on a second, get it out, test it, learn from that. And then we'll improve it, get it out in the field. We'll find loads of problems out there and then bring it back.
Right.
So there's a kind of a re-engineering thing that needs to happen. And, students think everything has to be perfect. And it doesn't.
Well, they want that A. I mean, you can't blame them, but, it is an imperfect world. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
So do you think, and then in terms of one of the ultimate outcomes of what you're doing is generating high quality data and more data on the environment, right? So do you think, because we've had a conversation before about the Water Framework Directive and countries seeking the kind of good ecological status, and actually, what does that actually mean to citizens on the ground, right? I think the question is, can they swim or bathe in the water, or can they drink it, right? If you really break it down to a simple question of how it affects people personally. So do you think from the time you've been involved in this, you're seeing more of an appetite for kind of real-time data on water quality amongst citizens?
Yeah, what a great question. Well, first of all, there's a fear of more data,
right?
Definitely. And yes, though, people want to know more about water quality. So I heard a great term recently about bathing waters, the swimmability of them. So,
I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So from my perspective, more data is not what we need. obviously we need good quality data. What we need is good information. So it's really around the citizen getting the information they need. So whether it's the surfer or the swimmer or the fisher person or whatever it is, that they get the information that they need about their water quality. And so, yes, you do need more data for that. But the local authorities having to deal with reams more data is going to turn them off.
Right.
So we need to find a way of providing them with a service, I think, that gives them the information that they need. So for the surfer, it might be an app, or, for the swimmer, it could be a red, a traffic light system on the beach. Mm. So I think, yes, we need more good quality data, but for what purpose? To provide information. Okay, not to make people's heads spin, I think. No. So,
I've heard it also referred to as data obesity, when an organization just has too much data in different categories and different buckets, different teams, and actually trying to make sense and create kind of actionable insights from that data is the real value, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a huge appetite for information and to be able to make better decisions. And, citizens, again, want to make decisions about their daily lives. Swimming is a great one. Can you believe here, Atlantic, people are swimming every single day of the year. It's nuts. In the Irish Sea, close to where I'm living, every day there's people swimming. And, they'd like to know if there's bacteria in the water, if there's E. coli in the water, but the monitoring stops in September. So May to September, we have monitoring under EU legislation. And after that, there's no monitoring really. So people don't know what the water quality is like until they start getting sick. And people have gastro problems all the time. There's a massive movement here at the moment. I think there's something like 20,000 signatures now on a bid to try and get year-round monitoring of water quality for bathing water.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge thing. And it's a simple thing to do, to start integrating data sets around rainfall, outflows, we've got stormwater overflows, all those kind of things that we need to consider. We've got dogs on beaches, we've got birds, all kinds of things contributing. But, year-round monitoring is definitely what's being called for, and I totally support that. And we have the technology to do it.
I think it's about translating the data depending on the user or their specific need, whether it's a surfer, paddleboarder, dog walker, like you said, a kind of interest in different points of data. But still, ultimately, it comes down to, is it a safe environment? Has there been any pollution incidents? And is there anything in the water I should worry about?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, non-technical. Right. Just give me the punchline.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, a traffic light system, right? There's
exactly.
People to want to know if it's safe.
Right.
Right.
Okay, well, Fiona, that half an hour has absolutely flown by. I think we could have easily carried on talking about paddleboarding or rowing, or even this wonderful ecosystem you've created. So I definitely think you should come back on the stream to give us an update on how that's developing. So really want to thank you for your time. It's been really interesting to hear from you and some of your experience as well. But Will, final comments and thoughts from you before we wrap up?
Love water. I think this sector desperately needs a simple narrative. It's just love water. You don't need anything geeky or technical.
Two words. It says everything, right?
Brilliant.
There we go. T-shirts.
T-shirts.
I think we've just come up with the headline for the podcast, right? Love water with Fiona Regan.
Brilliant.
Done.
Yeah.
Guys, this was so much fun. This was so much fun, really. And I love what you're doing. Well done. Congratulations. And it was great.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Fiona. Yeah. Well, it helps with guests like you and with the stories to tell, right? So great stuff. All right. Well, thanks very much for your time, Fiona. And to everyone listening, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel for further updates. And thank you, guys. Until the next one.
Thanks a lot.
Be safe.
Bye-bye.